Born on October 13, 1991, Sarah Payne had 3 other siblings, a younger sister and 2 elder brothers. On July 1, 2000, the family traveled to Kingston Gorse in West Sussex to visit Sarah's grandparents. Following dinner, the family decided to travel the short distance to Kingston Gorse Beach, where they spent some time throwing stones into the sea. Sarah's parents and grandparents left the children to play on the beach while they went to visit friends nearby. Sarah's brothers, who were 12 and 13 years old at the time, were held responsible for their age. Sarah and Mike, Sarah's parents, had stopped at the local pub for a quick half pint on their way home. Mike's mother was standing outside while holding Sarah's sister's hand tightly when they arrived. Sarah and Mike were asked if they had a Sarah. They refused, claiming that they had left the youngsters to play together. Her brothers informed their parents that they were unable to locate her. Sarah had vanished after they had barely walked 150 yards from the grandparents' house. Sarah had gotten lost on her way home, so the family quickly began scouring the neighborhood for her, but she was nowhere to be seen. They had gone to play in a nearby cornfield, according to Sarah's brothers, as they had done many times before. Sarah had become separated from her brothers while playing and had vanished in an instant. Sarah's parents began a frantic search for their daughter right away, but to no success. What had started out as a pleasant summer afternoon had transformed into an endless nightmare. There was still no sign of Sarah after an hour of searching with the help of several locals, so the police were contacted. The police started looking for Sarah right away. Lee, her brother, informed them that while rushing home to inform his parents that they couldn't find her, he observed a man in a white van driving erratically and laughing broadly. The man waved at Luke as he passed by, and Luke said he didn't think much of it at the time. But now, he suspects the man of being involved in Sarah's disappearance. And so did the cops. He was quite scruffy, looking like he hadn't shaved in ages, Luke said of the man. His face was covered in white stubbles, and hair was flecked with gray. He was filthy and filthy. On the evening of July 1st, a number of suspects were taken in for questioning, including convicted sex offenders, and anyone who possessed a white van was asked about their activities. Roy Whiting, a well-known pedophile, was their first stop. They had no evidence against him when they questioned him. They only had suspicions. As a result, after interviewing him, they had to depart. In 1995, he kidnapped and raped a 9-year-old child and was well known to the authorities. Her disappearance occurred only 5 miles from his apartment, heightening suspicions even worse. Her parents, Michael and Sarah, have made repeated televised interviews begging for Sarah's safe return, which now has become a national news topic. Sarah's disappearance drew the attention of worried parents all throughout the country, and her parents became well-known figures. The couple worked frantically to bring attention to their daughter's disappearance, desperate for any leads. While her family continued to make daily appeals on national television, police personnel and a large number of volunteers investigated the region around where she had gone missing for any clues. On July 10th, police revealed that they had received information about a girl matching Sarah's description had been seen on the morning after her abduction at Knutsford Services on M6 motorway in Cheshire. Michael and Sarah Payne were advised by police 3 days later to prepare for the worst, explaining that the focus of their investigations had switched and that their daughter might not be recovered safe and well. Human remains were recovered on July 17th near Sarah's grandparents' home near Littlehampton, less than 12 miles after her disappearance 16 days prior. Sarah Payne's partially covered body was found laying 10 yards away from a main road. Police claimed that she had been there for a while. Sarah and Michael, Sarah's parents, spent 20 minutes site where their daughter was found and laid some flowers. Hundreds of well wishes and police officers had left memorials. The following day, July 18th, Sussex detectives verified that the body was that of Sarah Payne, and a murder inquiry was launched, with the police concentrating on Roy Whiting. Whiting's flat was initially inspected by police on the afternoon of July 2nd, but he was not present. The cops returned later that evening and interrogated Whiting for more than an hour before leaving. Whiting walked to his van after being questioned, but was intercepted and detained by undercover cops. Whitting was held in detention for 2 days before being released on bond due to a lack of evidence. A shoe was discovered on a roadside in the village of Coolham, 3 miles from Polborough, 3 days after Sarah's body was discovered. It was determined that the shoe belonged to Sarah Payne. Police discovered a receipt for petrol from Buck Barn Garage on the A24, not far from Coolham, when searching for Whitting's van. Whitting told police that he was going to a fun fair in Hove at 5:30 p.m. and returned to his flat by 9:30 p.m. on the night that Sarah vanished, which directly contradicted his alibi. Whitting stole a Vauxhall Nova in Crawley on July 23rd and was chased by police at speeds of up to 70 miles per hour before colliding with a parked car. Whitting was charged with reckless driving and sentenced to 22 months in prison. After Whitting was sentenced to prison for car theft and hazardous driving, detectives took advantage of the opportunity to conduct forensic testing on his van, a 1988 white Fiat Ducato that he purchased on June 23rd. Whitting was charged with the abduction and murder of Sarah Payne on February 6, 2001, after a police investigation. 20 forensic specialists from a number of professions, including pathology, geology, and archaeology, were brought in for Whitting's trial at Louis Crown Court. Pathologist Vesna Jurek told the court how Sarah suffered a violent death, that she was strangled in a sexually motivated attack. A total of 500 objects were forensically tested, with the investigation involving over 1,000 people and costing over 3 million euros. Roy Whitting was found guilty of the kidnapping and murder of Sarah Payne on December 12, 2001, after a 4-week trial. He was sentenced to life in prison with the recommendation that he never be freed. Mr. Justice Curtis, the trial judge, said that it was a unique situation in which life should mean life. Whitting's earlier offense was revealed to the public and the jury after his sentencing. The public and Sarah's family were angry when he revealed that he was a repeat sex offender, feeling that the 8-year-old's death could have been easily prevented with monitoring. Whitting has perpetrated a terrible crime against a young child before, including the murder of Sarah Payne. In the Langley Green area of Crawley, where Whitting grew up, an 8-year-old girl was abducted and sexually raped on March 4, 1995. After hearing that the abductor's van was a Ford Sienna, which matched Whitting's description, a man who knew Whitting stepped forward. He was apprehended by police not long after. The Sierra was then tracked down by police, who examined it and discovered a weapon secreted inside. The woman had alleged that her kidnapper had informed her that he had a knife. Whitting was sentenced to 4 years in jail in June 1995 after admitting to counts of kidnapping and indecent assault. The maximum term for the crime was life in prison. However, because he pled guilty to the crime, he received a significantly reduced sentence. Whitting's psychiatrist at the time predicted that after he was released, he would reoffend, but his warnings went unheeded. Whitting was released after less than 2.5 years in prison, after being condemned to life in prison. Whitting was freed from jail in November 1997, having completed 2 years and 5 months of his 4-year term, and was one of the first people in the United Kingdom to register as a sex offender. He would have been released even sooner if he had not declined to participate in a sexual offenders rehabilitation program, which would have added 5 months to his sentence. The News of the World promptly went to press with a contentious front page that received widespread support. They listed 50 sex offenders, with plans to reveal the identity of thousands more over time to their readers. People were harassed across the country by vigilante organizers, who forcibly removed families from their home. One woman was singled out because she was a pediatrician, who was falsely identified as a pedophile. Sarah's parents started a campaign with the News of the World to amend the legislation to allow the public to know about sex offenders in their neighborhood. Sarah's law was enacted in England and Wales in 2011 and had an immediate impact. In the first year, the police received almost 1,600 inquiries in their neighborhood, resulting in the protection of 200 children. This story, unfortunately, did not end there. Sarah poured her energy into creating Sarah's Law and preventing what happened to her child from happening to another innocent. Michael Payne spiraled into depression due to the loss of his daughter and his inability to protect her. Sarah's siblings were left reeling by what had occurred, and the events of that time had shaped their lives ever since. Michael's depression worsened during the next 14 years, and he began to drink. Michael and Sarah's marriage ended in divorce, and he became an alcoholic. He was sentenced to prison after attacking his sibling with a shattered bottle at one point. The judge was compassionate, but he couldn't justify the crime. Michael continued to drink regularly after his parole and died in 2014. Unfortunately, more dangers and heartbreak lay ahead for the family that had already gone through so much. Sarah has had 2 big strokes since her daughter died, leaving her paralyzed on the left side of her face and unable to move normally. Her second stroke put her in a coma, and her family was told she had a 50% chance of surviving. She is also afflicted by post-traumatic stress disorder. Roy Whitting is still in prison and will be eligible for parole when he reaches the age of 82 in 2041. During his time in Wakefield Prison, he was assaulted 3 times. He was slashed with a razor in 2002, leaving a 6-inch scar on his cheek. He was stabbed in the eye in 2011, but his injuries were minor. 2 convicts stabbed him in 2018, although his injuries were not life-threatening. Another prisoner thrashed him with a flask in 2019. He is kept in a cell at Wakefield Prison for the most part because he is afraid of being attacked by other convicts. The convicted child murderer was stabbed with a sharpened toilet brush and slashed with a razor. He is said to be spending his life sentence in his cell creating elaborate creations out of matchsticks. After constructing copies of St. Paul's Cathedral, Big Ben, and a Lancaster bomber, the monster was dubbed Matchstick Man. Sarah would be 30 years old this year. Sarah, her mother, published a book, including a series of heartbreaking letters she sent to her murdered daughter, whom she refers to as my angel, and stated that she still talks to her in her brain. I talk to Sarah in my head almost every day about mundane things like the weather, she said. It makes me feel more connected to her. Writing letters to her has helped me make up in a small way for the teenage years and beyond that I didn't get with her. It has made her more real.